baseball.
This is the Redbird Report with sports director Wiese and Bob Ramsey.
Powered by Rawlings and the Rawlings Experience
On the Big 550 KTRS.
Well, welcome in, everybody. It's the Rawlings Redbird Report on the Big 550 KTRS or KTRS digital platforms like YouTube and our KTRS app. You can watch us at any time. Wow, what a time, Rammer, to get things going here this baseball season. We're past the halfway point, right, of spring training. Mm-hmm. We're now full steam ahead to the start of the year, and I feel like we've got a lot of things to dig in on. Katie Woo, a great article today in The Athletic. We'll touch on some of her items of interest and a lot of intrigue, whether you think this team's going to be good or not. Rammer, a lot of intrigue surrounding the 2025 Cardinals.
I don't know if they'll be good or not. I don't even know who's on the team. We're repeating ourselves a lot because we're getting information slowly, daily, but some of the overarching themes are not changing in that you've got young players that have to come through if you're going to be successful. The bullpen looks pretty good. The rotation should be competitive with maybe a chance to be good, but can you hit? And I think that's, to me, that is the overarching issue for this ball club.
Well, let's start with a guy we've talked a little bit about this spring. That's Jordan Walker. Suffered the injury last week on our last Redbird Report, Rammer. It was our Rawlings Redbird Report where he went down. Obviously they're trying to sort through things with him. You've presented this late last week, a scenario where maybe Walker is able to start the year down at the minor league level as he tries to get things sorted out, hopefully the injury behind him. How do you see that scenario potentially playing out for Walker and for the Cardinals?
The only way I can look at these issues is if I were running the club, what would I be thinking? If Walker was hitting 350, I'd say, let's get him well and get him back in the lineup, and he's playing. I mean, if he was hitting 350, we wouldn't even, oh boy, hope his knee's okay because we need him in the lineup. But he hasn't been hitting at all. At all. So can we use knee rehabilitation and swing rehabilitation to say, we're going to take it easy with you. Let's get you a bunch of at-bats at Memphis and take it as it goes. Now, with a couple of weeks left, he's probably going to get back in the lineup in the next few days. And he could turn things completely around. I'm not saying this is an absolute solution or a scenario where they should go. I've been saying from the beginning when we've been talking about this, performance is the key. If he comes out and performs, balky knee or not, then he can be in control of his own destiny. But if he comes back and he's in and out of the lineup because his knee hurts or he continues to hit 140, then I think that's the avenue to go, which will help clean up some of the other things around the team. But obviously, we want this young phenom to be good. So if he can be good, then he's the right fielder, and then we shift all the other moving parts somewhere else.
Right, and I think I don't have an answer for how will he produce or not produce if he's compromised. My guess would be not great. There's not a big track record of him at the major league level having success anyway. So if he's not completely healthy, not completely comfortable at the plate, why force feed him into the big league lineup? Whether it's April, whether it's May, whether it's later than that, Rammer, I do want to see Jordan Walker in the lineup every day, but I want that when he's healthy. And I don't think he's in position right now to do that. So what it does, Rammer, is that it gives it's really it's genius by yourself, and hopefully the Cardinals take a cue here because they can do this without dinging his confidence, right? Hey,
yeah,
you're a little banged up. Let's start you down there.
Yeah. We want you to get 100%. Let's make sure that knee's okay. Let's get your swing going. You've missed a full week. It might be a week or 10 days. You've missed. We don't want you to push. We don't want you to put pressure on yourself. I think that could be a way they handle it. Again, if by the end of this week he's in the lineup, his knee feels pretty good, and he's playing and he's hitting, again, in some ways, he's in control of his own destiny.
Right. I think the Cardinals have the ammunition to play it out as they wish with the injury and maybe being able to twist things a little bit. That's one of the Cardinals' young treasured prospects over the last 3-4 years. The other is Nolan Gorman, a guy that, again, we've talked a lot about, Rammer, and you've hammered home. This guy's got to be productive. If you're going to play him, he's got to be able to hit. Have you seen anything? Again, spring training stats. He's one of the guys I'm interested when it comes to spring training stats. Not as interested in Brendan Donovan or Nolan Arenado. I'm interested in Nolan Gorman. How is he producing at bat to at bat? What's the exit velocity? All of that stuff I'm interested in.
The swings have been a little better. Is it enough to say he's back in his groove, that he's back to being a guy who's going to fulfill potential? I think that's still an unknown. And he's another guy. If he hits, he's your starting second baseman. To me, if he doesn't, now how will the Cardinals, we don't care. He's going to hit and we're going to put him in there. I hope they don't force feed him into the starting second baseman spot. If he's not hitting, if he's, striking out, his strikeout to walk is 10-1. That's not good enough. That's not a big league ratio. And if that's the case, my second choice is I prefer to have him playing third base every day at Memphis.
Yep, and you've touched on that here during our shows, Ramber. And I think that's, like, as of right now, credit the Cardinals. We don't need to do that all the time. They've got to earn it. I do like the fact that they've given him all of the runway necessary this spring. He leads the team in spring at bats. It's good and bad, right? I mean, the good is that he's getting the reps. The bad is the reps haven't always been good.
The reps have not been good. 10
strikeouts, 1 walk, a homer, 7 for 32. That's not good enough. I know some of the ball may be jumping off his bat a little bit better, but
he's got more time in spring.
Yeah, he does.
If he starts, it looks like it's picking up. And again, if he hits, he's going to be the second baseman, and I'm okay with that. And I know you are too.
I am as well. Yeah, I want to see him get the reps. I want to see him there, and it's just, here's one of these guys, and his big league portfolio is one with a lot of wild swings. Here's the thing. I'll take the wild swings if you've got like 5 or 6 of them, and your cost control. Problem was last year, Rammer, it was like 2 wild swings, and everything else was like really bad. And you can live with it if it's like 5 or 6 times where he's gone up and down. It's just, as of right now, not great. Like you said, you've got a couple of weeks, and I think we agree on this. This is one of the reasons why spring training stats, another reason why I want to take him with a grain of salt. Like, I'd rather see a guy right now in spring just be holding his own, right? Just tread water, have good at bats, don't strike out a bunch, hit the ball hard. But let's watch that batting average. Let's watch the on-base and slug. Let's watch that go up in like a week or so on that runway, the final runway to the regular season. I want to see those guys hit then, as opposed to right now. And again, when you're battling for a spot, Gorman is, I think he's under the microscope more than anybody else.
He probably is. I would agree.
And so that can lead us to our first position battle here tonight. And Katie Wu, who just does a fabulous job establishing herself as one of the premier baseball reporters in the entire, legitimate reporting.
Terrific.
It's spotless, and she's got a great column up right now on The Athletic of guys that are currently in position battles. And this is a real intriguing one here. We both talked about this off the air. She has center field leading off the position battles with Victor Scott and Michael Ciani. She says that battle is neck and neck right now. I think you and I look at each other, Ramber, and say, really neck and neck? Ciani's got a hit, while Victor Scott was cooled off since his torrid
but
start.
Not a lot. He's still getting walks.
Exactly, yeah.
He's not flailing away.
You've got to be happy with where he's at. So,
Terrific.
I mean, if we're talking about like the status right now as we record this March the 11th. Where's the center field battle right now? Like, I got to, Victor Scott's the leader in the clubhouse, and Ciani's got work to do unless they think the defensive metrics swing so wildly to Ciani. I just don't think that's the case.
I agree with you. And so why would a great reporter, as we already pointed out, said it's neck and neck? My guess is, as a reporter, you talk to the Cardinals, and that's what the Cardinals are saying. Now, why would the Cardinals say that and not us? Maybe they're afraid, is Victor Scott really ready to hit big league pitching? We know Ciani can sort of hold his own. He's not a good offensive player, but he's not an automatic out, and he's an elite defender. And perhaps they want that, at least the specter of competition, to maybe push and see what they have with those two. And the only way I can say, because we don't know what the next 2 weeks are going to hold. We don't know what's going to happen. So if we're playing tomorrow, and I would ask, if we could go ask 100 people that pay attention, if we're playing a game tomorrow, who are you putting in center field? If you had more than 10 people out of 100 say Michael Ciani, I don't know what either what I'm looking at or what they're looking at, because you're always going to get outlier people. Oh, no, it was Ciani's job to lose. I don't buy that, but I could see somebody saying that. Scott's outplayed him, period. So I respect Katie. I'm sure somebody told her that. And so you have to go with that if the club's telling you that, but I don't see it. As of today, as of March 11th, Scott's clearly ahead of Ciani from what I've seen.
And she also noted that, and I think we both probably agree with this, the loser of the starting job, Rammer's not on the big league club.
No, he's playing center field in Memphis.
Yep, absolutely.
Which I'm okay with that too.
I'm fine with that as well. And it allows someone like Lars Nootbaar to patrol center field every now and then. I don't know if there is no clear platoon possible that I can see.
No, there's no right-handed center fielders.
I think it would have to be, I think it would have to be Victor Scott. Let me ask you this. Do you think the team is, again, it may just be, we're going to say this, we're giving you maybe a little bit of lip service, but after Victor Scott's opening performance last spring, once the big league season started, he had that job.
Yeah.
If they're a little skittish with crowning him the guy because of last year.
Yeah, although typically they crown guys and make declarations way too soon. On this one, perhaps they learned their lesson, and I wouldn't blame them. Let's see how it goes. He's still a kid. We really like what we see, but let's see how we go through the end of March.
We've seen, like today, I think Nootbaar led off. Scott's gotten a chance to lead off. Wynn, Donovan. We threw out our projected starting lineup, Rammer, weeks ago. Do you think with how Ollie has, flipped and flopped a little bit and had guys and again, testing a lot of guys in the leadoff spot, if that is are we watching a tryout right now to see in his mind who fits the best, or do we just assume that it's going to be Donovan or Wynn in that spot, and maybe that depends on who's on the mound on a given night?
I think there are a number of those variables that are all legit. I think if you had to make a lineup out, you'd still have Wynn there. His swing's not right now. You can see it. It's kind of long and got a little bit of a loop in it. But we all know how good he is. And so if a guy's scuffling, would you start let's say it's whatever that first March date of the opener is. Would you say, Mason's scuffling a little bit, Victor Scott's red hot, or Lars Nootbaar's got a 380 on base in spring? Let's just flip it around for a few days. See, the days of we're going to have a set 9 and that's it, those days, that's never going to happen. It's certainly not in this town. And if you really go back and look at box scores, when we think about when I was a kid, Brock Flood and Maris in the outfield, Shannon Maxwell, Javier Cepeda, McCarver, you know what? Those lineups changed a lot too. Day to day, guys out of the lineup, lefty versus righties. They move things around a lot back in those days too. But I think that you'll let performance settle. What if Wynn doesn't hit for a high average and high on base, but he develops more power? Maybe he does slide naturally down in the lineup a little bit, and Scott or Nootbaar up there. I think those things are all realistic possibilities.
I love talking about the leadoff spot because I feel we didn't talk a whole heck of a lot about Nootbaar leading off, and he is intriguing because of the on-base rammer, and that's the one thing with him that has been pretty steady, right? Batting average, his batting average, not for me. His power numbers, I think, have been a little underwhelming, but the one profile about Lars Nootbaar that we've heard about since he got here, and that I think has held pretty steady, is his ability to work the count and get on base.
Yeah.
So especially if Wynn is still scuffling at the start of the year, he's your opening day shortstop. I'd love to bat him ninth and let him stay down there 8th or 9th and let him not have to worry about being in a high leverage spot in the lineup early.
And he started there last year and then started hitting and moved up. That's called performance-based promotion and evolution.
I'll say this. I'd love to see that be the case for Wynn early. Now that we've seen some of spring play out, I would love to see him bat down in the order and just take the pressure off him, because it won't take much. Well, here's an 0 for 6. This is a sophomore slump, all that stuff. Like, the Cardinals need to weather that. Like, they need to swallow any pride or any notion that, what's going on here, and let him work his way out of it, whether it's 0 for 10 or 0 for 20. You got to let this guy's a franchise shortstop. And then maybe if it balloons more, you have a conversation. But they got to let him work through things. And hitting 8th or 9th, that's a great way to keep the pressure off the young man who's so important to this team.
And if he even hits a little, puts the pressure on the opposition, having that kind of bat lower in the order. All those things are possibilities.
And I love how we can, kind of ebb and flow here and go in different directions. If Nootbaar is your opening day leadoff hitter, that it can, I think you could probably think about moving Contreras to 2. I think you could think about Donovan hitting 3rd, and then you talk about alternating left, right. And then obviously there's talk about who's actually ultimately in there. Probably you boost Herrera up a little bit if he's playing. And we'll talk about that catching battle coming up here in a little bit. It potentially can add a little spice to this conversation. I hadn't thought about it much, but I think Newt's. I think that's potentially a good spot for him.
Yeah, I don't like Contreras too, because I think I don't have much power anyway. I like him 3, but you got to get your best guys the most at bats.
There you go.
And so
I love that.
If it ends up that way, then that's just the way it ends up.
And it's funny that it took baseball a long time to get to that. Like, Shohei Ohtani is not your prototypical leadoff hitter in any baseball era.
No.
He's your best hitter. But you want to get your best hitter at the plate as many times as possible.
The only thing there is, I don't think the Dodgers and some other teams that have a similar situation, if you're going to do that, you can't have, you're wasting him if you have your worst hitter hitting 9th.
Very true.
And I think that they don't complete the equation. And that's where that so-called second leadoff guy could fit down there in the 9 hole. And that's where, like with the Dodgers, if you go with Ohtani Betts, which they are, which they should, which they do, you don't have your worst guy down. You put Tommy Edman 9. Now you got something going. Now you've got a continuation of a lineup.
And they've got an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah. You got so many good guys. Come out of a hat. It doesn't matter. They're going to be good.
Tony was ahead of his time.
He was
25, 30 years ago with the second leadoff man hitting 9th, and before the DH, the pitcher hitting 8th here in St. Louis with TLR. Let's take a break. We want to talk about the position battle potentially behind the plate. We've let that play out a little bit. We'll talk about Herrera and Pages. And what about the rotation? You know who was terrible today when we record this? Eric Fetty. He's in the rotation, though. What about the 4 others battling for 2 spots? We'll discuss it coming up. It's our Rawlings Redbird Report on the Big 550 KTRS on our YouTube channel, where you can like and subscribe to our channel, like the video. That helps it help spread it to other Cardinal fans. And, of course, right here on the Big 550.
And now back to the Redbird Report with Brendan Wiese and Bob Ramsey on the Big 550, powered by Rawlings and the Rawlings Experience.
We welcome you back. It's the Rawlings Redbird Report on the Big 550 KTRS. We've got a lot to dig into with this Cardinals rotation coming up here in a little bit. But we've danced around it a little bit. I want to do a little deep dive now. I know you've been wanting to behind the plate for the Cardinals. Ivan Herrera, Pedro Pajes, they'll both be on the roster. Who's gonna net the most at bats? Who's gonna net the most appearances behind the plate? I think we're getting to a point where we can see, Herrera as that guy right now. But I don't know. Have you seen anything about his defense that would preclude you from putting him back there, even with the potential all-star bat he brings for the position?
No. However, the Cardinals don't like him back there. And that's what matters. If he's not going to catch, then he's got a DH, which again then has a trickle down, because then Burleson's got to go play somewhere. Lucan Baker's got to go play somewhere. So offensively, the best spot for him is catcher. Can he convince the Cardinals he is a big league catcher? I'm not saying the best. I'm not even saying middle of the pack. Can he be an everyday catcher in the big leagues? I'm fine with it because I know how compromised the offense is. So that's the question for him. He's got to convince the Cardinals he's an everyday catcher.
So obviously framing is part of the game. I think we both agree it shouldn't be, and
that's going to change.
It is going to change. Exactly right. So let's talk about.
It's his arm, though. That's the key.
Let's talk. Yeah, exactly. His ability to gun down opposing runners, because this is not Major League Baseball 10, 15, 20 years ago when the stolen base was practically extinct. It was mash as many home runs and take your chances. It's money ball. If you attempt to steal, we're going to grade that as that's a negative aspect to your potential player portfolio. So now things are different. Bases are a little bigger. That helps along the way. But there are teams that have shown to be and some of the very good teams that have shown to be aggressive on the base paths. If Herrera can't get his thrown out percentage at a decent level, Rammer, at that point, does it become prohibitive for him to be back there? To me, that's the only thing that could prevent an everyday Ivan Herrera catcher in St. Louis.
And so, if so, then I've got to DH him. I have to. The lineup is not good. Anybody who can hit's got to play. That's my look at it.
So the problem then becomes, like you said, who sits? I mean, he
takes Baker out of it for sure.
He takes Baker out of the equation. But let's just look at a normal day. Let's include Jordan Walker on the team for this exercise. If Walker's in the everyday lineup, you've got, let's say Victor Scott, let's say Lars Nootbaar, let's say Jordan Walker, let's say Alec Burleson is your DH. Is it?
Well, then it would be a platoon.
Then it becomes a platoon, right?
Because Alex showed, especially later in the year, some difficulty with left-handed pitching. And so I guess I could live with that platoon. But is Walker going to out-hit? Is he going to hit Herrera, in particular against left-handed pitching, or really moreover right-handed pitching? Does that put Burleson really as an everyday guy, switching between right field and DH? Those are some issues that only observing players performing in real games, that's the only way you can answer those questions.
I think if Herrera's DHing and Pajes is behind the plate, if it's DH catcher, and you've got 2 regular catchers playing, I think the dynamic nature of your lineup takes a hit. And again, it comes down to you sort of weigh the scale. What's more important? And I guess from a Cardinals perspective, if they do weigh sort of limiting the opposing run game, maybe that's higher on the rankings than just your normal bat. But you said it. This is going to be a team that potentially, especially early on, if you're trying to patchwork things together, this is going to be an offense that finds it tough to potentially tough to hit. So, golly, it's a real interesting equation.
Maybe what you do against lefties, if Walker's in the lineup,
sure.
Maybe you go Walker in right and Baker DHing and Herrera catching against lefties. Maybe they make that concession to defense or away from defense, I should say, against lefties and get as many right-handed bats in as they can. That's something that Ollie could do as well.
I feel like this is something we really agree on. We talked about this a few weeks ago. Luke and Baker's made this team, right?
Yeah.
How do you deploy him? And again, what are these spring numbers? And this is where spring numbers get a little complicated, because who has Luke and Baker hit the most against? Is he hitting against guys that will not be on the big league roster here in a couple of weeks? I think that's a fair question to ask. But the one thing he does, Rammer, is mash. And this could be pinch hitter late in the ball game, and maybe more importantly, the right-handed answer to a platoon, whether it's DH or, well, really, that's the only thing. The only thing he could platoon would be a DH, but you can utilize the rest of your position players. Some just may move around. So
shuffling around.
Exactly right. So it's more than just, one guy DH is right, one guy DH is left. You could have a lot of different pieces in the equation. But
and because you're left-handed heavy with Gorman, Donovan, Scott, Nootbaar, that having them available against tough lefties is a strength, a real positive.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I don't know if there's anybody else on this roster like right now. Gorman may be in a perfect world, but like Baker is your old school home run hitter. I mean, he looks like somebody I could see on a baseball card from the 1980s or 1980s.
Yeah,
he's like,
definitely.
Is he the right-handed Kent Herbeck or something like that? Like you just throw him up there and let him mash. And I think that's a weapon. You've got to find a place for a guy like that, especially if the offense is a little undermanned to start the year. I think Luke and Baker fits that role, and we both agree he'll be part of this opening day roster in a couple of weeks.
Another guy I think is knocking at the door as we get into the bench.
Yeah.
Two guys that nobody talked about, and they should be talking about him now. Koperniak, left-handed hitter who can really hit. He's not a prospect anymore. He's 27 years old, I think. And then this other kid, this utility guy, Barrero, I think he's going to beat out Fermin.
Think so.
I think he's going to beat him out.
Something Katie Wu pointed out in her column was Barrero doesn't have a lofty big league track record, but again, you're looking to find guys that are diamonds in the rough right now. I mean, he makes...
Well, but neither does Fermin.
No, exactly.
I mean, half of the guys on this roster don't have lofty big league track record. So
is Fermin and Barrero fighting for a spot?
I think
they
so.
Coupled with a couple more? Like, again, Koperniak, 304, 360 on base, and 2 home runs, 5 strikeouts to 2 walks, 7 of 23 at the plate. And we said this a couple of weeks ago. Like, Koperniak for me is someone that I doubt he's like in the big picture future plans for the Cardinals. But who's to say he can't?
First of all, let's just say he's not.
He's not.
But here's the thing. Let's look on the negative side.
Yeah.
Gorman and Walker both fail the next 2 weeks. Yeah. That opens up a spot because Donovan becomes a second baseman. You figure out right field. Maybe it's Burleson. Who knows? Maybe Koperniak gets some looks out there. But having another bat really helps. I think if he was a right-handed hitter, he'd even have a better shot. But the guy can hit.
And Rammer, you're a regular on Twitter during baseball season. You'll check in, see what some of the reaction is on a day-to-day basis. Cardinal fans love to when a guy does well for a couple games or a week. And it's not just, oh, this guy's playing well. It's, oh my gosh, how can we sign him to a 10-year contract and make sure he's the guy forever, right? I would implore folks not to think that way, especially when it comes to Kaepernick. Like, this guy could really be a valuable piece, whether it's for a week or a month or longer. I don't know. I doubt he's on this team a year from now. But that's not saying he can't help you in a small window of time where you might not have all of your pieces clicking. So having a guy like Kaepernick, who you're not worried about whether any feelings are hurt or if this could be a real step back. No, he's either on the roster or he's not.
Yes.
It's a pretty simple, and I'm sure if you're John Mozeliak and Ali Marmol, that's a situation you love. There won't have to be too much. It's in, it's out, and it's what he's doing right now. And the bat is live. I think as of right now, he's definitely kind of like 1 foot in right now, Raymer. Yeah. He has given himself a puncher's chance to be on this roster.
You should be watching every at-bat of Gorman and Walker the rest of spring.
No question about it. Bob Ramsey, Brendan Wiese. It's our Rawlings Redbird Report. You're listening on the Big 550. You're watching on our KTRS digital platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel as we talk ball with you. Let's take a break. Let's talk about the rotation. Katie Wu had it in her column today. 4 pitchers, 2 spots for the rotation. How does that play out? We'll discuss it next.
You're listening to the Redbird Report on the Big 550.
Powered by Rawlings and the Rawlings Experience.
Winding down the Rawlings Redbird Report. Brendan Wiese, Bob Ramsey. If you're watching us on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the video, and we're basically in the 6th floor medical ward here tonight, also known as Westport Plaza, Rammer, and we do this on the 5-year anniversary of COVID.
Yeah. In honor of
absolutely
the pandemic.
We decided to leave our masks at home in honor of just being able to hear us somewhat clearly. Let's talk about this rotation, Rammer, and the guys that are locked in, right? It's Sonny Gray, it's Miles Michaelis, it's Eric Fetty. So you've got 4 pitchers competing for 2 spots, and those pitchers being Matthew Liberatore, McGreevy, Steven Matz, and Andre Palante, who we talked about last week. I guess he's been, a little up and down, to be fair.
And he's been more down recently.
Yeah.
His mechanics always bothered me because I feel like they can get out of whack. I think his mechanics and Herrera's hitting mechanics both scare me a little bit. But coming into spring training, I would have thought Palante was a lock for the rotation, the way he performed, in particular the second half last year. But it appears that's not necessarily the case today.
Exactly. So there's 4 open spots.
2 spots.
Yeah, excuse me, 4 pitchers, 2 spots. Yes, thank you, Rammer. If I were in charge of any of this, I'm going to start and say, Steven Matz, let's work this out in the bullpen. Let's find a role here.
His time with the Cardinals, it's proven. If anybody doesn't believe us, go back and look at his splits, rotation versus bullpen. He's a pretty darn good reliever. Now, you're overpaying him, but whose fault is that? That's the front office.
Exactly.
You got to put your players in a position to help the team. And if you're going to jam a guy in the rotation because you messed up and overpaid him, that is a way to lose baseball games.
And if you want to trade Matz at the deadline, pitch him out of the pen where he could put up some decent numbers. If you start him, it just ain't happening. And there's not going to be any teams knocking at your door. Maybe as a late inning fireman, maybe he draws some interest later.
Now, the surprise to me that the Cardinals are boosting Matthew Liberatore. I would have thought no shot. He's a bullpen guy. I don't even think about the rotation. But in spring, he's performed. He really has.
There's no question. And I like the fact that the Cardinals decided, let's stretch this guy out.
Yeah.
Let's see what he can do. And then if he's out of the rotation, you ramp him back down. And then you've got the high leverage 15, 20 pitch count, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And Liberatore was great in that role. But man, if there is a scenario where he can still deliver, man, I'd love to see it. That's still a trade. I know that, but isn't it funny? A trade that we've come full circle. Like Randy Arozarena, no longer the elite outfielder he was 4 or 5 years ago. Like
he's just an everyday guy.
He's just a guy. Exactly right. And we're still waiting to see exactly what Liberatore is. Like there's a chance maybe we've litigated this trade too early. I kind of doubt it, but there's a chance. Like Liberatore's got a window to still be really good. And maybe 5 years from now, we all write Mo an apology note and say, this it's kind of worked out. Like I hope it does. Like I know Liberatore, he's got a lot of potential. And even if it is back into the bullpen, there's a lot of value.
Here's the way I see it, which has nothing to do with the way the Cardinals see it. But here's the way I see it. To me, barring an absolute disaster, not a scuffled outing, he wasn't very good today. Michael McGreevy has to have a couple of nightmare starts for him not to be in my rotation. So that means now I'm down to 3 guys for 1 spot. We've already said we agree Matt should be in the bullpen. So now I've got 2 guys for 1 spot, Pallante and Liberatore. And I don't know who would win that.
If I had my preference, I'd go with Pallante.
Because we've seen him be successful.
Exactly. We've got some of the track record there. And that's not to say Liberatore doesn't jam his way into that spot later on in the year. Maybe.
But it means we're all right-handed in the rotation, which you got to go with your best guys no matter where their arm hangs. But that might be the one thing if Pallante continues to scuffle and Liberatore continues to be really good like he has been, that him being left-handed might get him ahead of Pallante. I wouldn't bet on that scenario, but I think you have to consider it.
Let me ask you this. What about a 6-man? And do you think did the Cardinals have any evidence to suggest a 6-man rotation makes everybody better? If that's the case, do it. But I just I've never seen that evidence.
I've never seen it either. With this particular group, do we have any evidence that it would make them worse? And do you say, hey, guys, we're going to go with 6 and see how it goes? Meaning, when one of you guys screws up, we're taking you out of the rotation. Right. Say, for the time being, we're going 6. Normally, under almost any other circumstance, I'd be against it. But with this group and this team in this season, I wouldn't to start the year. I wouldn't be against it.
And then a guy that we know is locked in, but that's like right now. Who knows about a month from now? Like Eric Fetty has not been great. And this falls into the category, how much do you take his spring stats seriously? But one stat that kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, Rammer, is 4 home runs allowed in 10 innings. In a ballpark in Florida that generally doesn't allow that many home runs.
He's been hanging around Michaelis too much. He's getting too much of the plate. I liked Fetty when we got him. I liked him more often than not after the Cardinals got him. I think you hang with him, and I think he's in the rotation until he's either really good and you keep him or he's good enough that you can trade him.
I think you said it, and I think I don't know if he'll be so good that, and I hope he's not. Like, I hope he's good enough that they can parlay him for something else, because I just don't know if he's anything more than
a 4 or 5.
Exactly right. And I don't want to pay a premium for that. They've already done that. That was Steven Matz. You paid a premium for a 4. You paid a premium for a 3 in Michaelis. Don't do that anymore. Find cost-effective guys in your minor league system that can be in the back end of your rotation, and maybe you find another top-flight guy elsewhere in the next couple of years. So in that regard, I hope Fetty is really good, and the Yankees, who currently are not going to have Garrett Cole, and every year it's World Series or bust, maybe Fetty is someone the Yankees look at a little bit later on in the year. So, Rammer, last 2 spots. Pallante and McGreevy. I think we're in agreement there. Unless
Pallante scuffles and Liberatore outperforms him.
Yeah.
And being left-handed gives him an edge. That's my caveat to that scenario.
And I'll say this. I think Liberatore showed himself to be potentially, I think I used Andrew Miller as a comp. Now, that's a lofty comp because he was baseball's probably best reliever that wasn't a closer for, I would say, like 4 or 5 years.
See, if I have Liberatore start, Matz is my...
He becomes your Andrew Miller.
Yeah.
And
because you got Jojo Romero is your mad Hungarian.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Mad Mexican, I guess. and he's great to get lefties out. And the bullpen will come together. I think the bullpen will be fine.
I think it will too. I think that's like the one area you just let play out, and you've got the pieces there. And again, you interchange, whether it's Liberatore sliding out, Palante sliding in. And that's the thing, Palante, one way or the other, whether it's in the bullpen or in the rotation, like Palante can really help this team.
Could he be the right-handed setup guy?
Maybe he's exactly right. And he's shown the propensity, to miss bats. That also seems to come and go with him.
Yeah, it does.
But it's there. We've seen it. So maybe it's, if you decide, leave him alone, keep him in the bullpen, and see if that stuff plays up and he can get more swings and misses because the ball club will obviously need it. Rammer, we're in March Madness here, but I'm really starting to get that itch for baseball. And again, honestly, I don't care if the Cardinals are good or bad. Like, it's going to be fun for me. I know it's going to be fun for you to just watch baseball again. And there'll be plenty of stuff for us to talk about when it comes to the Cardinals.
Well, here's the other thing. What if the young guys are good? I'm talking about because I think Herrera will hit. But what if Gorman, Walker, and Scott are all pretty good? You go from an offense that at this point we'd have to say is terrible to maybe having a really good offense. And that potential, while unlikely that all three of them are good, while unlikely, is still exciting to think about for the time being until they prove it can't be done.
We talked about reaching that 90th or 95th percentile as a hitter. Heck, even one of those guys does that. And I think we're talking about a complete change to the ball club. It's going to be fun. Rammer, always appreciate it, sir. Safe travels to Brooklyn?
Washington, D.C.
Safe travels
Capital
to our nation's capital for the Atlantic 10 tournament. Thanks, Rammer.
You bet.
That has been our Rawlings Redbird Report on the Big 550 on our YouTube channel. Like the video, subscribe to our KTRS TV channel.